Alright, so heads up before we actually start the video, I just wanted to apologize for the mediocre audio. I'm actually going through a cold right now and my computer just isn't working, but since I got a video that's coming out soon, I need to get this done, so yeah, we're just gonna have to kind of make do with what we have here, but anyways, back to the main video. So if you've ever scrolled, viewed, or even passed by any sort of Bluey related content online, particularly on Instagram, you may have come across this account I'm showing on screen. This account goes by the name of Bluey Social, and is arguably one of the most popular profiles in the Bluey fanbase. However, in spite of its seemingly harmless content and over 130,000 followers, this account, along with a few others, is not only unofficial, but actually a complete scam, and one you should avoid. Let me explain. So from face value, this Bluey Social page, along with others such as Bluey.fan, seem innocent enough, with lots of fun content, positive comments, and of course a notable following, but right off the bat, you'll begin to notice something a bit strange, which is that their content is pretty inconsistent, often using a lot of different styles, presentation, and so forth. And well, to put it simply, it's because all of the content they post is basically just re-uploaded or stolen from other creators, ranging from TikTok posts, merch posts, edits, and presumably everything else. And in fact, in a lot of their so-called photos or videos, you can even see handles or watermarks clearly referencing other creators, aka the people who actually made the original content. Also, quick edit here, I was just gathering the footage you saw to show examples of like re-uploaded content, and I just found out that they actually used some stuff from my channel, including my socks microwave video and my honestly kinda awful rusty intro recolor. Now personally, I have nothing against people using that thumbnail because it was kinda lazy on my end, and honestly not really that original anyways. But I just thought it was really funny that stuff even from my channel somehow ended up here. Although regardless, I still do think it's a bit lazy. And to be fair, yeah, they do sometimes provide credit or acknowledge that their content comes from someone else, but looking at a few comments, both on their posts or elsewhere online, it's pretty clear that them giving credit is actually an afterthought, and something they only really do when people specifically ask for it or call them out. And sure, you could argue that sharing existing content is not inherently a bad thing, and admittedly I do it sometimes myself, because that's how stuff like memes normally work anyways. But in my opinion, there is a difference between doing something like just sharing or referencing a simple post or image once in a while because it's funny, and then taking whole videos, animations, or artwork and posting them in their entirety, not changing or adding anything new, all to get attention. And in general, this all tells me that these people do not genuinely care, because if they actually cared about highlighting creators in the fandom, they would consider crediting people as a priority rather than an afterthought. And also know even better that most artists and animators usually don't want their work reposted or re-uploaded at all, especially in the event that the re-uploader doesn't add anything and just copies the video as is, which is exactly what's happening here. And no, I don't think putting a copyright disclaimer or just occasionally trying to credit the creators once in a while automatically means you should just now be able to get away with taking entire videos. However, in practice, it seems like they do get away with this, at least enough to still be active. And in my opinion, it just seems like this whole system feels incredibly lazy, as they are basically relying on existing content and creators to get views, whilst adding absolutely nothing new themselves. However though, as if all of that wasn't concerning enough, I actually recently found out that these accounts aren't just doing this for views or engagement. Because if you go to their pages, you'll find a lot of posts referencing their store, you know, the good old link in the bio. And upon checking their store, I was genuinely shocked by what I saw, to the point that this exact moment convinced me to make this whole video. Because looking at their store, they of course have lots of Bluey themed merch, and while most of it is mostly, I guess, kinda harmless stuff, such as shirts with fan jokes or crossovers, things that would obviously never become official merch and, in my opinion, fine to offer as a fan site because of that, even if it is technically copyright infringement. But the main thing that did concern me was the fact that a few of these products don't just use existing characters or even vectors, such as this one that's literally just a beach book cover slapped onto a shirt, but also, in some cases, seem to directly rip stolen fan art as well. And overall, it's hard to find the original images for some of these because anytime you look these drawings up, you just get a ton of results for the shirts or hoodies using the art, likely because all these different sites probably take from the same sources and list the same stuff, flooding the search results. But one example I do believe could be ripped was this bandit one right here, which actually later found out uses this drawing from DeviantArt by user Jordan Fretchett. And for another example, I also noticed this chemical romance shirt, which is another popular one that a lot of these sites love to use, and upon doing some research into it, it appears that this one was actually created by an animator known as Art of Gnomes, who from what I've read, has actually worked on stuff related to the show. With that said, this picture is still technically fan art, it's not like officially a Bluey product or anything like that, but it is kind of interesting to note. But anyways, while looking into this, I did find this AI cover using the image, and in the comments of the video, someone actually mentioned having a shirt of this picture and commenting, quote, "The artist made it into a shirt," which interestingly enough was followed by another comment from an account called Art of Gnomes simply replying, "No, I didn't." Which to me seems to imply that, assuming this is actually them, they in fact did not give permission for these people to use their fan art. And from there, there's probably more examples I could find, but those were just two I noticed right off the bat. And knowing how much content these people have stolen already, I think it's reasonable to believe that there could be more examples. And you know, just in my opinion, not only is it lazy to just re-upload existing content for views, but also to do so just to plug an unofficial store, which is selling products that also have stolen works for profit. To me, that is just going way too far. And while I of course haven't bought any products from this group or other stores doing similar things, I did see a comment on Reddit mentioning how these products were apparently really poor quality, which while something I cannot personally testify, I honestly wouldn't find surprising at all. And on top of that, it also doesn't help that from a glance, a lot of these accounts are clearly trying to look official to some extent, because with their profile pics being virtually identical to those used by the official Bluey account, it makes it really easy to mistake them for being official, or at least a reputable source, which makes this whole thing feel even more egregious. So with that, if you happen to come across this account or the few others similar to it, which you likely will because they're just so popular, I would recommend not engaging with it and just to move on, because by most accounts, this is not what it appears to be, and arguably a complete scam that, in my personal opinion, is basically taking advantage of other creators and just copying existing work in order to make a quick profit. Also, while I was making this video, I was looking at some of their older posts and ended up finding this image. Super random, but yeah, that's something they posted. However, with that said, they did also later post a picture of Pretzel with two mums, so maybe they gave up and changed their beliefs. Although, with that said, I'm like 99% sure this is also stolen fan art, so I can't give them too much credit. But with all of that said, I'm curious to hear what y'all think about these Bluey fake social media accounts and others doing similar things, and I'm also curious if any of you have had issues with these accounts or even possibly have experience buying products from them. But with all that said, that's all I have for today's video. Stay vigilant everyone, stay safe, and until next time, my name's Hideaki and I'll be signing out. Goodbye everyone. Oh my goodness, that cold is gonna be the end of me.